follow that guide, you'll have a mount and the starting area of the map unlocked, which you need for this guide. After you've done that, from the first step resting spot just here on the map, we're going to turn and go directly south, because there's some of your mount. There's a guide on how to do that linked down below in the description. After you follow that guide, you'll have a mount and the starting area of the map unlocked, which you need for this guide. After you've done that, from the first step resting spot just here on the map, we're going to turn and go directly south, because there's something we need to pick up in order for this method. After you've done that, from the first step resting spot just here on the map, we're going to turn and go directly south, because there's something we need to pick up in order for this method to be successful. So just go ahead and hop off the cliff just here, using the jump button so you don't take any fall damage. And then we're going to run all the way off the edge of the cliff just here. Just go ahead and sprint off and jump. And as long as you land on your horse at one of these sort of channels of air, you won't actually take any fall damage. Now what we're going to do is ride over to the east just here, and we're going to pick up this treasure hidden just on this pilgrim's body here. There will be some undead spawning around you, but you can just ignore them because, you can literally just walk past them. And now we have the gold pickled fowlfoot, which we need later. After you've got that, we're just going to go ahead and jump on this whirlwind. That's going to send us back up here. And then we're going to jump on this one to get back up to the top here, which is a pretty damn cool view. Or alternatively, you can just fast travel back to the first step resting spot. But if we go to our inventory and then we look at the gold pickled fowlfoot, this is essentially an item that increases the amount of runes that drop in the game for a short period of time. And we're going to need this later on in the video. Now, once again, looking at the map from the first step resting spot, we want to travel directly east along the bank of this lake just here, all the way down around the dip here. And we're going to put a map marker just over here, which is near this sort of fort in the path here. You can see we're going to travel from here just over here. And I'm going to put a waypoint over there by pressing A. And then we're going to go and travel to that waypoint that you can literally see in the distance over there. Just hop down the cliffs here and carry on going all the way to the waypoint. And if you're a fan of Elden Ring or any other Souls games, you may also be interested in Display. They sell metal posters that you can attach to the wall with magnets. And they have some really cool Dark Souls and Elden Ring artwork, which you can grab from the link down below. That there is another resting spot of grace, exactly where I marked on the map. Now we're going to be just here on the map at the Agheel Lake South. So if I go ahead and zoom in, you can see that just to the side here, there's a path that we can follow that goes all the way down through a valley and across a bridge just here on the map. So we're going to put a waypoint just after that bridge over here, and that's where we're going to head over to next. So let's go ahead and mount up. And then we're going to jump up this rock here and just sort of walk over to the road. And you can see our waypoint over to the south there. So we're just going to head down the road through this valley and across the Bridge of Sacrifice, which is a rather dangerous bridge because it actually has a ballista on it. So in order to avoid that ballista, basically what you need to do is just listen out for the sound of it firing. As soon as you hear that sound, just dodge to the right, like I do. And then it'll miss you every single time. And we're literally just going to run.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you coming? Are you here?
Stop by the picture.
Wi-Fi?
Oh.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Ride across it and ignore all the enemies. They won't be able to hit you because they're far too slow. And we're going to come to the other side of this bridge where we put that waypoint. We're just going to pause here in the Weeping Peninsula Valley. And then step a bit more forward until you can open your map. And now you'll see you've uncovered kind of like a path that carries on going south. So we're basically just going to keep following this road to the south. And we'll put another waypoint just here where this sort of T-junction is at the road, and we're going to carry on heading down this pathway, and you'll see just ahead of us there is a broken down carriage. And inside the back of this broken down carriage, if I hop off my horse, we're going to find a chest that we can loot for the Morningstar weapon, which is a very important weapon that we need for this guide. So let's go ahead and pick that up. Now, at this point, you can die, and if you're playing as a mage or a weaker class, the Morningstar will require a higher strength to wield. But don't worry, you can just two-hand it and use it effectively. To do this, hold down Y or triangle on PlayStation, and then press the light attack button while holding it down. And then you'll be two-handing the mace, and you can now use it effectively as a weapon. And we're going to fast travel back to the Aghil Lake South resting point just here on the map once again. And from here, we're actually going to go all the way to the northeast, where there is another Church of Marika located just here, just below this little lake here. We're going to put another waypoint there. And if you watch my other video, you already have this area of the map unlocked. If not, starting from the Aghil Lake South resting point, we're literally just going to go northwards on this pathway. You guys can skip ahead if you already know the routes. I'm just showing you map unlocks. If not, starting from the Aghil Lake here, just below this little lake here, we're going to another waypoint there.
Yeah.
And if you watch my other video, you already have this area of
Okay.
map unlocked. If not, starting from the Aghil Lake South resting point, we're literally just going to go northwards on this pathway. You guys can skip ahead if you already have this area of the map unlocked. If not, starting from the Aghil Lake South resting point, we're literally just going to go northwards on this pathway. You guys can skip ahead if you already know the routes. I'm just showing you for new players just to make it super clear where to go, because a lot of people have commented on the video saying they appreciate that. And then we're just going to carry on north past the bridge that we come across. You can see the path turns left across that bridge, but we're going to carry on going right north down this dirt track here, all the way over to the Church of Bridge that we come across. You can see the path turns left across that bridge, but we're going to carry on going right north down this dirt track here, all the way over to the Church of Marika, which is the next location. And here we are at the Church of Marika. So let's go over to the Church of Marika, which is the next location. And here we are at the Church of Marika. So let's go ahead and head on inside of it. And just here we can activate the resting spots of Grace. And as you can see, we're now right here on the map at the third Church of Marika. And if I go ahead and zoom in on the map, right to the north, just where this lake is, we're going to put another little waypoint just over here, because there's actually a teleporter that's going to take us all the way over here. So from this resting spot, you can see there's a gap in the ruins here. We're just going to run over here through the bushes. You can see our waypoint is just over there. So hop down these rocks to the lake just here. And this is the teleporter hidden in the bushes, kind of like a wispy bit of wind. And we're going to activate this teleporter and travel to another location. Ooh, spooky. And now we're at the Greydol's Dragon Barrow, and there's a sneaky enemy behind us. So as you can see, this has teleported us all the way to the northeast of the map over here. So we're going to zoom in, and pretty much directly south, we're just going to put a waypoint marker around here where this clouded area is. And here we are at the Church of Marika. So let's go ahead and head on inside of it. And just here we can activate the resting spots of grace. And as you can see, we're now right here on the map at the third Church of Marika. And if I go ahead and zoom in on the map, right to the north, just where this lake is, we're going to put another little. As you can see, we're now right here on the map at the third Church of Marika. And if I go ahead and zoom in on the map, right to the north, just where this lake is, we're going to put another little waypoint just over here, because there's actually a teleporter that's going to take us all the way over here. So from this resting spot, you can see there's a gap in the ruins here, which is going to run over here through the bushes. You can see our waypoint is just over there. So hop down these rocks to the lake just here, and this is the teleporter hidden in the bushes, kind of like a wispy bit of wind. And we're going to activate this teleporter and travel to another location. Ooh, spooky. And now we're at the Greydol's Dragon Barrow, and there's a sneaky enemy behind us. So as you can see, this has teleported us all the way to the northeast of the map over here. So we're going to zoom in, and pretty much directly south, we're just going to put a waypoint marker around here where this clouded area is. Just over here. This is basically the direction we're heading, and you're going to follow where I go now. So if you look in the south there, you can see the waypoints we placed next to that golden tree, basically. That's your reference from here. And now we're just going to run past this guy. He's not going to attack you. He's not fast enough. I'm just going to go down this pathway, heading east currently, but it sort of loops around to the south there. You can see there's a big bridge. But before we get to that bridge, there's actually another resting point, which we're going to want to pick up. If you die for some reason in between here, you can just come back using the same teleporter. But you see, just before you get to this bridge, there's a resting point of grace just on the left here. There's also a massive dragon on that bridge, but don't worry about it. He is absolutely harmless. He's very friendly. We want to get on our horse again, and then we're going to ride up to this dragon. And as long as you're quick, like, it doesn't attack you. In fact, I usually like to run between its legs, so you guys like the video. He seems to just sort of react to you and then take ages to actually start to attack. So as long as you're riding straight on, you shouldn't have any problem, and he'll pretty much miss everything, as you can see. So now what we're going to do is carry on riding down this pathway. And you can see that's the golden tree where we placed the waypoint. And we're going to continue up to this. Ignore the lightning, by the way. It doesn't actually do any damage. And you can see there's another boss directly ahead. So at this point, go right around these pots. And then you're going to want to go straight on in between these pots, just over here. And then you're going to flee ahead. So at this point, we place the waypoint, and we're going to continue up to this. Ignore the lightning, by the way. It doesn't actually do any damage. And you can see there's another boss directly ahead. So at this point, go right around these pots, and then you're going to want to go straight on in between these pots. Just and by the way, it doesn't actually do any damage. And you can see there's another boss directly ahead. So at this point, go right around these pots, and then you're going to want to go straight on in between these pots, just over here, and then you're going to head left up this little sort of rocky area just here. And then we're going to stop here, have a look on the map where we are. So you can see this is where we were. We went across this bridge here, and now we're just here at the Minor Erdtree. So then from the foot of this giant tree that we're at, we're going to go directly west now. And we're going to continue along this pathway until we... So then from the foot of this giant tree that we're at, we're going to go directly west now. And we're going to continue along this pathway until we basically get to the enemy we need to get to. Head west down this pathway, ignoring the enemies once again. Just carry on following this cliff edge here, keep going, and you eventually have to drop off this ledge just here, so go ahead and do that. There'll be a giant ball. You can go ahead and yeet if you like. And then we'll get to this sort of area where there's a cliff face. So at this point, follow exactly where I go. We're going to jump up the cliff here. There's a big dragon on the left. We're just going to ride round just here, where if you like, and then we'll get to this sort of area where there's a cliff face. So at this point, follow exactly where I go. We're going to jump up the cliff here. There's a big dragon on the left. We're just going to ride round just here, where I'm going exactly. Carry on riding round. We're going to go just to the right of his wing here, hop over here and head round behind him, and then jump over here. And we're now basically behind the dragon just over here. You can see there's no enemies here, and we're pretty safe. So we're going to jump off our horse, and we're going to enter sneak mode. Just make sure that none of those dragons have followed you. Now, if you want to know the exact location, you don't have the map uncovered. This was the Minor Erdtree we're at, and we are now just here next to this pathway, and that is where we are at this dragon boss. And as you can see, we're absolutely fine here. So what we're going to do is now we're going to walk in between this sort of dragon's wing here and just like armpit area. And we're just going to start hitting him from here while we two-hand our weapon. Now, as you can see, we are going to start to melee this dragon with our Morningstar mace. And it will do very little damage. But this doesn't actually matter, because each time you attack, you actually have a bleed effect, which does percentage-based damage after it builds up.
I don't mate.
After several attacks, you'll do 13,000. What we're going to do is now we're going to walk in between this sort of dragon's wing here, which is like armpit area, and we're just going to start hitting him from here while we two-hand our weapon. Now, as you can see, we are going to start to melee this dragon with our morning's armpit area, and we're just going to start hitting him from here while we two-hand our weapon. Now, as you can see, we are going to start to melee this dragon with our Morning Star mate, and it will do very little damage. But this doesn't actually matter, because each time you attack, you'll actually be stacking the bleed effect, which does percentage-based damage after it builds up. So after several attacks, you'll do 13,400 damage very suddenly. And now what we're going to do is now we're going to walk in between this sort of dragon's wing here, which is like armpit area, and we're just going to start hitting him from here while we two-hand our weapon. Now, as you can see, what we're going to do is now we're going to walk in between this sort of dragon's wing here, which is like armpit area. We're just going to start hitting him from here. While we two-hand our weapon. Now, as you can see, we are going to start to melee this dragon with our Morning Star mate, and it will armpit area, and we're just going to start hitting him from here while we two-hand our weapon. Now, as you can see, we are going to start to melee this dragon with our Morning Star mate, and it will do very little damage. But this doesn't actually matter, because each time you attack, you'll actually be stacking the bleed effect, which does percentage-based damage after it builds up. Several attacks will do 13,400 damage very suddenly, and this lost health disappeared. Then I'm going to carry on light attacking the dragon this repeatedly until the dragon is no one health. I suggest that you just carry on light attacking until the stamina is low, and then wait for it to fill up, and then start the combo again. This will take you 5 minutes to kill the dragon with health, so it doesn't take very much. The best part is the dragon doesn't fight back. You're going to get these moves for nothing. Without having to go to the part of the video, you just want to kill the dragon completely again. You just want to get it as low as possible. So, as I was doing this early on with any character in Elden Ring at the start of the game, using the sword on our weapon, get the dragon in the heart, at the end. It's the most dragon down low health like this, you're going to want to make sure you equip with golden tickle falcon from your inventory and stick your quick slot ready to use. Then we're just going to hit the dragon several more times, then activate the golden tickle falcons so you can see it ticking away there, and then just carry on attacking until it's dead. Then you'll also get extra points that the golden falcon gives you for being active at the same time that you're killing this dragon. But if for some reason you run out of golden falcons, there's a guide at the bottom linked below. Golden falcons do give me 30% boost to the amount of boost you get, so the other three farming boosts. And you can actually farm a limited amount very well. So as you can see, after the dragon is killed, we get all of the runes of the dragons surrounding us, 96,702 on the bottom right corner there. So, you can see there's a big difference there. In fact, there's a way to increase that to higher, which I'll talk about at the end of the video. However, it is a bit harder to do. So now we have killed the great dragon, we can pretty much just fast travel back to the first step resting spot or anywhere else to go. I'm going to level up our character. So as you can see, using 100,000 runes, depending on what class you're using and what level you start at, you can now set up your character build however you would like. I would strongly suggest checking out another starter guide or character build guide linked below, so you don't just allocate your stats randomly and you instead have a build plan in mind. In total, you start the game at level 5, Samurai class can level up another 20 times using this method. Look, if you want to get even more runes using this method, I mean like another 20,000 runes or so, well, that makes the level up even further. You're going to want to obtain the Golden Scarab, which boosts the runes you've obtained by another 20%. When stacked with the Golden Falcon, you can get
your description, so I hope you found this video helpful. Obviously,
It's DoorDash.
Elden Ring is the latest entry in From Software's library of never games that went from once formed classics in Dark and Demon Souls to now becoming such a powerhouse collection that as of March 19th of 2022, Elden Ring has sold 12 million copies worldwide. There are hundreds of hours of content to play, and so much variety in terms of builds and progression that this game is timeless, just like the past From Software games in similarity to it. But I don't think anyone outside of a small percentage of Souls legends were prepared for one boss players the sense of accomplishment by overcoming those odds. Names that you may be familiar with are Ornstein and Smough, the Field Knight, the Nameless King, the Orphan of Pops, and Sword Saint Ishii, all share this philosophy. Elden Ring, different animals that has different rules. You see, there is one boss in particular I would argue From Software wished to be harder than every other boss we have listed. Hell, harder than any boss that From Software has ever made. So, error, players quickly felt something had to be wrong. This boss's name is Malenia. And not only was she in material for the game, establishing variety, she also lets you know her name every time she kills you. The cement that you'll never forget that very same torturous name. This boss has been criticized by many for being too hard. Some say she's fair, while others say From may have jumped the gun. Well, in the face of all danger and all doubt, one legend arose. One Tarnished was summoned to be the community's archangel. This is the story of how one player took the narrative of the hardest boss From Software has ever made and flipped it on its head. This is the story of Light when the narrative was full of rot. This is the story of Let Me Solo Her.
Supreme Samurai is a pure dexterity build that focuses on the use of Nagakiba, having light equipment weight, and destroying enemies using the Unsheathed Weapon skill. The Unsheathed ability not only allows you to set the Nagakiba to keen, but allows you to do L2 and R1 attacks and L2 and R2 attacks, having vastly different movesets, the R1 being much faster and the R2 being an overhead slash that comes out slower but deals more stance damage. The armor and music for this build is the Nox Swordstress armor, White Greave Gauntlets, and the Ronin Greaves and Iron Casa. Combined with the Bull Goat Talisman and the Great Jar's Arsenal, you're able to get 51 poise as well as light roll. Additionally, we use Shard of Alexander to increase the damage of Unsheath, as well as the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman to increase our protection. Attributes you want to focus on for this build are Dexterity for damage, Vigor for health, and Endurance in order to be able to light roll. Supreme Samurai is a pure dexterity build that focuses on the use of Nagakiba, having light equipment weight, and destroying enemies.
This is the Godskin Peeler. It's broken, but we're going to make it better. You're going to use the Shard of Alexander, Broadwing Sword Insignia, Lord of Blood's Exaltation.
He's using the Unsheathed.
Here's what your favorite weapon in Elden Ring says about you in Dexterity Edition. Starting out with the Nagakiba, you guys hate every other katana user in the entire game. You are an elitist, and this is the best katana and best weapon in all of Elden Ring. Length has never been a problem for you, and you especially hate Rivers of Blood users. You are constantly in samurai cosplay, and the only thing you want from the DLC is more Ashes of War to put on the Nagakiba. Hand of Malenia users are a simp for one of the coolest bosses in the game, but you definitely think you are better than everybody else. You are constantly seen in Malenia cosplay. The Waterfowl Dance is the only move that you use, and you watch a ton of anime. For those using the Bloodhound's Fang, you are constantly using Bloodhound's Finesse, and this is definitely...
Elden Ring build advice. Don't level strength or dexterity, or rather level them to meet the minimum stat requirements for whatever weapons you want to use, and then no more, because past that point, these two stats don't really do anything. For comparison, if you look at the Vigor stat, going from 20 Vigor to 60 Vigor will give you about 3 times as many hit points, which is what you would expect, but going from 20 Strength to 60 Strength does not give you 3 times as much damage. Those 40 levels are only going to increase your damage by about 30 to 50%, and that's on a fully upgraded weapon. On an unupgraded weapon, the difference is going to be even smaller. So once you have the strength and dexterity to use the weapon you want, stop leveling those stats, take your vigor up to 60, take your endurance up to at least 25, and only then should you even consider leveling strength or dexterity. But even then, you still might be better off putting your levels somewhere else, like, for example, leveling up Faith to get the different buff spells, like Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, to the Elemental Resistance buffs that can make you very, very tanky. Elden Ring build advice. Don't level strength or dexterity.
Here's a quick rundown of every major stat in Elden Ring. There are 8 main stats that you can level up with runes, and each one affects multiple aspects of your character, including the secondary stats that you can find on your status page. Vigor affects your health, fire resistance, and immunity. Mind affects how much mana you have, as well as your focus. Endurance affects your stamina, robustness, and how much weight you can carry. Strength is a general stat that affects the damage scaling of strength-based weapons. It also affects your physical defense. Dexterity is a general stat that affects the scaling of dex-based weapons, which are usually faster and more nimble. It also reduces spellcasting time, reduces fall damage, and makes you harder to knock off your horse. Intelligence is required for sorceries. It affects the scaling of both sorceries and intelligence-based weapons. It also boosts your magic resistance. Faith is required for incantations, and affects the scaling of both incantations and faith-based weapons. Arcane affects your ability to discover items, as well as boosting your holy defense and vitality. It's also required for some sorceries and incantations. I'll be going over some of the secondary stats and what they do.
Verified to talk. Look 15. Brown butter Alfred. Verified to talk. Look 15. Brown butter. Yeah. They're gonna ban
At least she treats me like I'm somebody. Nobody loved me when I was nobody.
I did.
At least she treats me like I'm somebody.
Yeah, but listen, love you if you were nobody.
Wow, what a rare event.
What they say, and then try to base it off your acts. They usually work off it. JJ, you know what to do. Oh shit.
So, as I was saying about Undead,
What the fuck? I love this voice so much.
he was gonna break for a second.
Yeah, that's it.
I got it. I killed it.
I don't know what to do. That's fine. Come on, you can't do it. We just do like the two minutes. Yeah. Alright, go ahead.
Separate video. But in the meantime, did you know in Elden Ring, in the Siofra River, you'll encounter this ladybug right here. But what you might have noticed is that when you kill it, you don't actually get anything. What it actually does is it activates a passive ability called the Grace of the Fall, meaning that every time you jump off a cliff into a waterfall or a water source, you'll wake up next to this merchant, who sells items like swordstone keys, free golden runes, and an item that no Elden Ring player has ever used. Did you know in Elden Ring,
It's important that you know how scaling works in Elden Ring. It is a bit easier said than done though, as when you look at the attribute scaling page, it's immediately pretty overwhelming. But once you know what you're looking for, it's really not that complicated at all. So because my Bloodhound's Fang has a D in Strength and a C in Dexterity, every time I level up Strength or Dexterity, it will add to that plus 116 figure. Then the letter that goes next to it will decide how much it upgrades it by. The best rank you can have is S, and then it progressively gets worse all the way down to E. So to put it into context, every time I upgrade my strength stat, it will add, let's say, plus 20 to its power. But if it has an E next to it, it would only add plus 3 every time I level up strength.
So this is something that you really want to take into account when you're choosing which weapon to use. It's important that you know how scaling works.
We are back with another top 5 list, this time going through the top 5 dexterity weapons in Elden Ring. And to kick it all off, at the number 5 spot, we've got the Hand of Malenia. Of course, I'm sure you guys are aware of the waterfowl dance that Malenia uses herself, and when you have the Hand of Malenia equipped, you will be able to do that exact same move, and with the right build around it, you can easily do tens of thousands of damage with it. But there is a little bit of a caveat, because pretty much every mainline boss in the game will be able to interrupt that waterfowl dance. And before you say it's a skill issue, if you get interrupted before using all 3 phases of that attack, it takes about 10 seconds to do the whole thing. So unless you're coming up against an enemy that you can either stagger with that particular attack, or bosses like Rogue or Margit, you can use the shackle to render them useless, it can be extremely frustrating to use this weapon. And again, PvP, all your opponent needs to do is throw a freeze pot at you, and again that will interrupt this Astral Walk. But one thing that does save this weapon and pretty much pushes it to the 5th spot in this list is the fact that it is one of the longest. Nice base AR sitting around about the 700 mark, so it can be usable just with the base weapon set, but realistically, other than its reach, is therefore no better than any other katana in the game, and simply where the Moonveil's intelligence based and the Serpent Blade and River's Blood are arcane based, the Hand of Malenia basically made it to the 5th spot by default. But like I said, it is still usable, and I know I'm being a little bit harsh on it, but if anything, it is a perfect benchmark for this top 5 list. But I'm interested to hear from you guys. Are you a fan of...
What if you avoid Godric's fog wall? If I TP into his arena, instead of going through the fog wall, he won't attack me, but I can still attack him. He knows I'm there, but I guess the fight just doesn't trigger correctly. And funny enough, once his health is half, he'll still... and he'll do his scripted phase 2 opener, and then he goes back to doing nothing. And once he dies, he will still drop it. So if you can find a glitch to avoid the castle entirely, because I get he's optional, but maybe you're doing all boss speed. What if you avoid Godric's? You didn't beat Malenia. You used summons. You used bleed. You used magic. You healed. You leveled up. You used the screen. You had a maiden. You turned on the game. You didn't beat Malenia. You used summons. You used bleed. You used not about. In Stormveil Castle, you walk into this room, the screen goes black, you hear the door close, lock, and then you hear a hissing laugh. In my many playthroughs, I never realized that was a laugh, and god damn it, I never realized someone locked me into this room to face my doom. And you never really have time to think about it because you're getting jumped immediately when that cutscene ends. Anyways, take a wild guess who locked you up. Patches? Mare? Turtle Pope? It was Patches. Zid's grandpa, Gaston. This wanker, bro, I never realized he follows you around Stormveil, waiting for you to die to scavenge your loot. So if you ever killed him and heard this line, don't feel bad. You did the right thing. Tiny details I just found out about. If you're like me, you found Noble Sorcerer and was like, okay, nice, a ranged spirit summon, that'll be useful. And then you summoned him. Well, I owe this man an apology. If you read his item description, Spirit of a Nobleman who once asked to be given a place at Raya Lucaria to learn Glintstone sorceries. His talents were insufficient to be worthy of donning the Stone Crown, however. He is only capable of using the most rudimentary sorcery. This dude is intentionally bad. It just adds another layer to my experience of summoning him, and I'm just sorry, man. You're trying, and I respect you. Tiny details I just found out about. If you're like me, you found Noble Sorcerer and was like,